going here. There we go. We are good to go. And David, I will turn it over to you and let you do your thing, my friend.
Awesome, man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for being here. I know everybody's got busy schedules and lives. So when I see a lot of people show up in one place, it's like, okay, this is awesome. There's a lot of committed people here. So with that being said, my name is DK or David Kyle Hutchinson. I actually got my start in the financial industry, gosh, probably 2010, late 2010. I got out of the military, right? Did my quick military stint for about 6 years. One tour over in the sandbox was enough for me to realize I don't really want to do this anymore, right? Like I don't want to be told what to do. And I love the uniform. I love America, but it just wasn't for me long term. So learned a lot of skills there. And then I actually got into traditional financial advising, AKA I worked for Wells Fargo, Prudential, did the whole like suit and tie, sat in a cubicle and did my little good boy, like calling everybody and saying, hi, this is what I do. This is what I do. I did that for a couple of years until I just realized I was like, something feels weird about this because when you start really learning the system, it's all geared towards like trying to sell a product for people to go into stocks, mutual funds, bonds, whatever. And your sole job is like, I'm just going to do this. Even if the market goes haywire, we're supposed to just tell our clients, don't worry, it's normal. Your money will come back even if you feel like you're losing it all. And I was like, why am I making money? I'm making fees, regardless if my clients are losing their portfolios. It just didn't sit right. So I actually ended up taking a break from that, got out of it altogether. I started a basic health and life insurance firm. That brought a whole different slew of problems because healthcare, Obamacare, whatever, right? Like we made a lot of money. I had a big agency, but it just wasn't, it was so taxing to me that mentally I just couldn't do it anymore, right? Like keeping up with tons of claims and all this stuff. And I was like, I just don't want to do that. So I literally got my experience in all those areas. And then I just got into basically this mindset where I was like, I see the problems. So how do I find solutions, right? So I started mentoring other guys underneath other guys who ran big financial firms and did all these really cool stuff with cattle farms and private equity and stocks. And I was like, okay, learn from everybody I could. Present day, started, running my firm back in, I would say 2013, 2014 is when I really started to grow it. And we do some really cool stuff, some really great strategies around maximizing wealth potential long-term, estate planning, taxes, things like that. So myself, I'm a strategist by nature. I'm a quarterback and I have the right people in place. I'm not a tax advisor, but I got the best, right? I'm not an estate planner, but I got the best. So from that perspective, what I would like to do is basically tell everybody on the call, the biggest problem I see in the world right now, right, is you've got this old school way of managing money that for a lot of wealthy people worked, right? Let's face it, before crypto, there were still billionaires that created their empires based off of private equity, real estate conglomerates, syndication funds, whatever, right? Insurance, it doesn't matter. That happened. But then present day, we have this thing that emerged called cryptocurrency, which can accelerate people's wealth building process by 10, 15, 20, 100 times, right? But that came with its own slew of problems. What was that? Misinformation, people losing more money than ever. So with the upswing also comes the massive risk. So I had this like light bulb moment. Prior to kind of engaging with Brandon and him and I working together and PD and all the guys that I know in the other crypto groups that kind of introduced me to everybody who's wonderful, right? I had this light bulb moment where I was like, why can't we try and figure out a way to marry old school kind of safety and security principles with the upside of cryptocurrency, so we're getting the best of both worlds, right? Ultimately, and it was very funny, ultimately what led me to that thought was I was at a gas station and somebody in front of me was buying lottery tickets. And I initially judged them. I was like, dude, I would never spend my money on lottery tickets. I invest my money, right? And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. Most people do that because they want two things. They want the possibility of inheriting wealth instantly, but they don't want a lot of risk. Spending 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 bucks, it's not a big risk, but the potential payout is massive. And that's when it hit me. We all want the same thing. How we go about it is just different. We all would like to amass wealth, but we don't want to take a huge risk and put our families into poverty to get there. It's really that simple. So ultimately, that's kind of my backstory in a very condensed nutshell, right? So military financial advisor, built a firm, and now we're here present day. I love a lot of different stuff, right? Like money is just the platform that I want to go out into the world and help people and evangelize and go, do things in third world countries and build a fitness facility here in my city to help people lose weight. Like there's so much that I want to do, but that all starts from having the capital and the revenues to do it. So with that said, you guys are probably all like, all right, that's awesome. Great story. How can that help me? Brandon, I don't know where you want to kind of segue there. If you want to kind of like help kind of nudge the conversation, I can go in a million different directions. So
Yeah, I think, in context, kind of like what you said, a lot of it, well, obviously everyone here is playing in the crypto space, and we're leveraging very low risk opportunities in order to, as you said, accelerate that process of growing our wealth. And then, this is just from my personal perspective, but one of the reasons I was so impressed with your approach when I first met you, because I thought like, okay, this is like the perfect complement to what I'm doing in the cryptocurrency space. Meaning, even if I get very low risk, accelerated returns, there will come a time when I have to go like, okay, but then what do I do with all of this wealth?
right.
And again, I'm probably going to misquote you here, but I know you were talking a lot about like protecting your wealth and putting it in places where you're going to minimize your tax liability, obviously leveraging all of the legal pathways in order to do so. So yeah, maybe you can just kind of give everyone a little bit of perspective on like, hey, long-term legacy wealth building, like what does that look like? And then I know you did your little like drawings with the little diagrams and whatnot. For me anyway, that was super helpful
Right.
just to kind of like give a visual to it.
Yeah, I could for sure do that. I actually left my really good drawing pad at the office today because I'm actually working from home today. My home get up my podcast room, but I actually have a smaller one I could bust out and do some little drawings if you'd like. So
Okay, that'd be perfect.
yeah,
Yeah,
I love to draw. So and it also helps with just visualization, right? So what I actually could do, I could share my screen and bring up a presentation that I have. So I'll do that as I'm talking here.
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so there's so many different directions to go. So ultimately, you hear a lot of things out in the world, right? And there's always a right and a wrong way to do things. Just like crypto, there's a right way to do stuff. The wrong way is, oh, my buddy told me about this coin. Maybe I should just FOMO $40,000 into it because he got lucky. Cool,
Unless
right?
it's Guardian.
Right. but even then, Nick would tell you, if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it, right? So it always comes with everything comes with a price, right? For me, a lot of times my price for things, it's not monetary anymore. It's how much time is it going to cost me? If it takes, if somebody offers me a business opportunity and they're like, yeah, you could make $2 million off of it. And I'm like, well, yeah, but how much time is that going to take away from my current business model? Which if I'm already meeting that or exceeding that, I'm not interested, right? So with a lot of people, it's the same thing. Well, hey, I don't want to go learn this, or I don't want to go learn this because I don't have the time. Then it kind of comes back, for me at least, to the same conversation. Like if you're in business and you're making X amount as a CEO and you're not delegating $100 an hour task to somebody else, you should be doing that. Kind of the same principle with building wealth. It's like you have to analyze where you're at and where you want to go. But ultimately, right, whether you have children or you're planning on having children, there's a way to do things that will compound and safeguard your wealth, along with getting those high pie in the sky returns or getting into risky endeavors that ultimately will not crumble your entire personal economy if something goes wrong. So things like that are trusts, right? Trusts are a tricky concept because there's a right and a wrong way to do those too. You got guys out there pitching spendthrift trusts. They're, oh, my attorney will set this up for you. It's only 12 grand. And all they're doing is putting your money into something that's titled differently than your name. It's helping you from a asset protection aspect, but they're not really saving you any money in taxes because the truth be told, if you want to set up a trust, advanced trust structure that's going to offset and mitigate a lot of your business taxes, it's very involved. It's kind of in depth, and it comes with a whole series of things you have to learn. Okay, well, now I might not show business credit or personal credit. I need to go get credit through my trust, right? It's a whole series of things that people are just like, I don't have the time. Likewise, other things like insurance accounts. Stop right here. Most of the time, 80%, I don't want to say 80, 60% of people immediately write off any type of insurance tactic in their wealth plan because They heard Dave Ramsey said not to. They heard X person at their financial firm, at Wells Fargo, right? They're just as bad at it. Most of those big box firms, they don't want to tell you, oh, you should go use your insurance. Why? Because once the insurance is set in place, there's no recurring fees. Big box firms are not making recurring fees off of whole life insurance or any type of insurance. What they are making fees off of is all your asset under management, right? So your stocks, mutual funds, bonds, things like that. So that's kind of one of the secrets that I honestly am really opposed to, is people bashing life insurance, because if it's used in the right way, it is a legacy building tool, right? So this is where I should probably bust out my my whiteboard. So let me try and share this real quick. What's going to be tough is I don't have the right pen. Will you give me, let's see here.
Yeah, if you need to jump and grab something, that's totally fine. I can share some thoughts too while you're.
Yeah, sure. What's awesome is I have an assistant that I could just say, hey. So ultimately, what this really is, what we're talking about, is you have to look at, in any endeavor in life, who's doing this at the best level and how are they doing it. So whether that's writing a book or getting exposure on TV, I don't care what it is. Somebody's doing it better than you are. You got to figure it out, right? So in my study, in my time of learning from very wealthy people that ran hedge funds and things like that, it became a common denominator that they all had big life insurance policies, not for the sake of life insurance though, as a place to store and house cash. Why? Because it's tax-free growth. It's the one and only thing in the financial industry, the only financial instrument to date, right? Unless they come up with something else. It's the only financial instrument that the government does not have power of, because it's solely owned between you and the insurance company. You are the owner of that asset. You don't own your 401k. You don't own your stock portfolio. That's all. You're having ownership in other assets. Life insurance is owned by you. Now, where it gets a bad rap, two places. One, agents that don't know how to explain it and they set it up wrong. They put way too big of a death benefit. They put you in the wrong policy. So the cash value is like little itty bitty. This stuff, if used for an estate planning play or for this kind of a thing, is supposed to be done with a smaller death benefit and a massive cash value storage facility, right? So what that looks like is you should not be overinsured. You should not have a ton of death benefit. And it has to be a certain type of policy through a certain company. Again, people will write this stuff off because they said, oh, well, blanket statement here, right? Insurance is bad because my grandpa's advisor told me that it's just not good. Here's why I always redirect the conversation. You are not taking out an insurance policy to invest. It is not an investment instrument. You're going to get your higher returns other places. What you're doing is replacing your bank account. We all know that the big banks are the culprits here, right? Now there's other culprits, but I digress. Big banks take your money. In a great book, write this down. Anybody that's really wanting to go dive deep on this, go look up the book on Amazon, How Privatized Banking Really Works. Okay, it's based on Austrian economics. It talks about, and I actually just saw a chat here, it says Laser Fund. Yes, that's a good book. So the reason that these accounts are used like a bank account is because you get way higher growth, anywhere between 4 and 6%, depending on how the market, right? There's going to be some shifts with the market because it's based on rate of returns are based on interest and dividends. So you're going to have some variance. But here's where this plays into things like cryptocurrency. Most people in the crypto world, most, not all, they want to utilize the asset of I can make a lot of money over here, right? But just listen to that term I just used, make a lot of money. I didn't say make more crypto. In the process of making more crypto, you can then pull those profits into what? USD. Now, and I go back and forth with a lot of crypto guys. We kind of give each other hell, like especially PD, right? Like I'm not sure if he's going to watch this, but if he does, he knows. I always tell him, I say, you guys all still have bills that you pay in USD though, right? Like you still have a car payment or you still want to buy that nice house. You're not paying for it in Bitcoin or GARD. Here's where a lot of people in the industry, not just this community, but the whole industry, they think linear. It's like, I only want to think about, well, if USD sucks, I only want to make my fortune in crypto. But what happens when you take those profits and move them back to that deflationary asset? Well, if you're putting it right back into the bank, you're skipping a step of growth. You repark your money instead of a bank account, you learn to park it in an insurance policy. Here's what happens. Your money grows and compounds exponentially. You can loan against it and take it back into crypto. House any crypto profits back into the policy. Again, they have to be set up properly to do this. You can't just have a year one insurance guy set this up because he watched a video on infinite banking, which is what this is called, right? It's got to be experience behind this. But with that said, there's a number of different ways to structure this stuff. And here's my favorite part. I want everybody on this call to imagine that when you turned 18 or 20 years old, your parents sat you down and they handed you a book. This is actually something I'm working on personally for later in life that I'm going to be putting out in the marketplace. They hand you a book and it's literally titled like Financial Literacy for Your Family, or Your Family Heir, Your Family Legacy Plan, okay? And it is how to be a good steward of your cash that they're about to hand to you. Maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $2 million in increments from age 20 to 25. And you have to earn those increments, right? And you have to say, I have a business plan. I want to start a business like mom and dad, or I have this business model, right? And they have capital now that's handed to them once the parent or the guardian passes away, right? Now, maybe it's a little bit later in life, but the point is, when someone passes away with generational money, they not only hand down those corporate policies or those personal policies, the cash value of what's in there. Right now, I just insured a gentleman who has 4 kids, 4 little young ones. He's doing about $400,000 a year into these policies. He owns multiple companies. It's going to generate him hundreds of thousands of dollars a year eventually in just interest paid to him. And when he passes away, between his 4 kids, they're going to get somewhere between 20 and 25 million between them. Now, a lot of people will go, well, that's, oh my God, like if I got that when I was that age, I would be like, I would go spend it on all this stuff. Again, the money cannot come without the stewardship. Okay. So, but that's just something to think about, right? Think about where you would be if you could leverage $1 million that you got from your parents when they passed, or $2 million to go into things like what you guys are doing in the crypto communities. It's a game changer. Everybody needs dry powder, right? Isn't that always like, oh man, I wish I had more to throw into crypto? Well, right. So thinking long-term, thinking legacy, that's just another thing I like to talk about. So, oh, that's where I was. I'm going to go ahead and message her real quick. Anything you want to caveat on that, Brandon? I mean,
yeah, I just want to pop in because this is so perfect and so timely and relevant. What I loved, again, right when I first met you originally, I appreciated how you put it in perspective, like a bigger picture perspective, right? So it's not like, oh, go get a life insurance policy. No, that's just one tool. There's different versions of that tool. You have to get the right one, but then you have to understand, once you have that tool, you have to understand how it plays with and interacts with other tools in this context. Like one of those could be crypto. And then you start to put all the pieces together. And then conceptually, I was just like, oh my word, I'm finally starting to see how all of these things put together and then eventually protected through a trust, how once you get that into place, now you have power and leverage really to do all kinds of crazy stuff or whatever you want to do in the world. But it was realizing for the first time, for me anyway, oh, this is the pathway to set up all of those structures inside of which I can now thrive financially. Right.
Yeah. And I try to explain it like, you know, I understand the inherent value of, hey, there's this new thing over here. And I figured out, I mean, I think Daniel's on the call, right? Daniel has figured out, Brandon, you've figured out, a lot of people have figured out how to actually make it work to where, hey, I took these dollars and maximized them, amplified them over here, right? It's when you come back and you cross that threshold back into the kind of USD system, I think a lot of people get sidetracked with the fancy, like high rates of return stuff. And they forget, you know what? But if I also figure out a way to maximize and compound my USD in the same way, because that's what's beautiful about this. Again, if you go pick up that book, How Privatized Banking Really Works, it's insane. If you actually have ever watched, just YouTube it. YouTube fractional reserve lending. It's mind blowing how if you go make a deposit at the bank, not even an hour later, 9 out of the $10 that you put in there is back out somewhere working for them, right? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. My lovely assistant is bringing me my pad. She knows I like to draw. So thanks. Ultimately, all they're doing is manufacturing a way to print money off of the money that you're parking there. So when you learn to play a different game, you use the same rules they're using and you park it where you're normally parking it in the bank, it becomes powerful because then you have an exponential growth curve. So let me go ahead and try and share this. Hopefully this will work. And when I say hopefully this will work, the pad works well. It's just sometimes the pen acts up. So can everybody see this? Whiteboard.
Yeah, we got it.
We can see it.
Awesome.
We got it.
Okay. So ultimately, think of it like this. And this is going to be super fundamental. Normally, you have your bank, right? And that's where your store of capital is. And you're getting, we don't even have to list and how terrible it is, how much you're not getting from that money, right? So if you have bills that are coming out of this account and you have your mortgage and all these things, so you have your income here, goes into the bank. Most people are like, okay, well, now I need to go into other assets and investments to earn a yield. If you can kind of rethink about, well, how my income goes into a different place, right? You set up your insurance account. Now, if you're earning 4 to 6% on all this cash, right? You start funding this thing and building it up like a bank account. Then you say, okay, well, if I've got 100 grand in here, okay, and I want to take 50 out to go into another asset, okay, you take that loan. It's a collateralized loan. So here's where a lot of people, they write it off because they say, well, don't you like get hit on the interest whenever you take a loan out? Well, depends on what kind of policy you have, right? So I won't get too deep into the weeds, but you can't do this strategy with a policy that is structured, first of all, a non-mutually owned insurance company. It just won't work. So, you know, there's a lot of companies out there that, oh, we tout whole life. Well, you can have a regular whole life policy and that's fine, but it's not going to operate the same way. What happens when you go into a company that has non-direct recognition loans versus direct recognition loans, okay? The money that you take out, loan out to go do whatever you want with, right? It's not being recognized as out. Now, the insurance company might charge you a small percentage, which is going to dock the amount of money that's out, will get a lesser percentage. But if anybody can tell me where you can go get 3% on your dollar as you're still using that dollar somewhere else outside of life insurance, it doesn't exist unless you own a bank. If you own a bank, then you can achieve this. So here's the other negative side to this. This has started to become popular in the last 2 to 3 years. I've been doing this for almost a decade on my own stuff and for other clients, right? We insure athletes, business owners, entrepreneurs. I'm actually getting ready. I can publicly say it now. Next week, I'm flying to Houston to ink a deal with a guy who's kind of working on the back end with Kevin Hart, the comedian. So we're doing some really cool stuff. But from what I'm told, it's like, hey, you just explain this in a way that I haven't seen this before, right? And that's all I'm doing. I'm explaining how this works and how I've been using it for a long time, but I didn't invent this. I just learned it from other people, right? Anyway, back to this. Non-direct recognition means that the money that you're being charged an interest rate on, the full amount is still growing minus the loan that you took out, but you're still getting an interest rate on that loan. So collectively, you're still in the net positive on how much money you're making. And again, the life insurance piece is just a bonus, right? If you were to pass away, that money goes to your heirs, but tenfold. Because when you do these kind of strategies, this is not, oh, I'm putting $30 a month in like term insurance. You're funneling your cash flow through this. So you're going to be insured for 5, 6, 10, $12 million. So with that said, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can structure this. If you're in business and you have a business that's an LLC, you can take out a corporate policy. That policy could be owned by your trust, and ultimately you don't pay any income on the insurance because it's being ran through. You can do a lot of creative stuff with it, but I'm just going to keep it simple. Okay. So you create this bank account for yourself, right? Infinite banking or bank on yourself. And you're simply using it like you would your traditional bank account. Now you want to be a good steward, right? People say, well, can I just take a big loan and not pay it back? Well, you could, but the thing is you're going to keep paying premiums every year. You can set it up to where it's annually drafted or monthly, right? You're still going to keep paying premiums. And when you pay premiums back in, it's going to slowly refill that bucket back up to where you're going to have more available. But I tell people, if you want the most out of the fund, keep it filled up to the top. right? Keep repaying yourself, keep dumping any capital. We utilize this strategy a lot with real estate investors. Think about it. They got a place they have cash sitting. While it's waiting to be deployed into the next deal, it's just sitting. Cash out refinance. Where do you cash it out? Where do you put the money? Most people put it back in their bank account, right? Oh, I got to put it back there so it's ready to go again. Well, what if it sits for 3 months, 6 months before you find the next deal? Why wouldn't you want to have it sitting in a place that's earning you interest as opposed to being eaten away by inflation? So with that said, all you're doing is repositioning where the capital sits. So 4 to 6% on average, right? Right now, with the way the market is, we're seeing some policies are making 7.6%, which is pretty high. Now, here's another thing. Let's say you see the writing on the wall, okay? And you've got 500 grand over here in this crypto stuff that's growing, okay? It doesn't matter what coin it is, what ecosystem you believe in. I'm not here to dive into all that, okay? I would do your own research, right? But let's just say you see the writing on the walls and you're like, man, I see a big market correction coming. And it's not that I don't believe in crypto anymore, but it's that I want to be a little bit safe with some of my cash. I only need, X amount to live on for the year. My business is doing okay, but what if my business goes down? What if my 401k tanks like it did last time? Being able to say, okay, and then you can really get creative with taking loans against some of the assets in crypto you have, okay? Loaning that back out, and you go back into a place where here is why I love insurance. Maybe it's just because I'm old school or I'm conservative by nature. I take risks, but they're always calculated. Not in hundreds and hundreds of years has a single A-rated insurance company, mutually owned insurance company, ever returned less than 2% on someone's policy. So contractually speaking, this is by law. Your money is sitting in an account, no different than a financial institution, okay? But contractually, you have to get 2% on your money. So the question is always, well, what if, everything goes to hell in a handbasket? Like, can't insurance companies go under? I'm like, it's kind of like saying, can't banks go under? Too big to fail. Somebody's always going to get bought out. Somebody's always going to get money moved from somewhere. Some other company's going to eat up the smaller company and your money's going to be fine, okay? It's pretty much, I don't think there's ever been anything on file where anybody's ever lost money in life insurance. Now, there's instances where people have passed away and nobody claimed the death benefit. That happens, okay? That's why you work with a good advisor who sets things up and has a system of, hey, who do I get a hold of? And the beneficiaries, they have the right info. Anyway, with that said, your money is safe. So we also can help people or advise people, hey, have a strategy to where if you do want to pull profits from somewhere outside of regular bank account, right, USD, you need to set it somewhere where it's still going to grow even if the market tanks, preferably not in your bank. So that's really kind of the highs and lows. I didn't really draw out too much here because it's very simple. It's you're not doing this for an investment strategy. Nobody's going to get rich off of 4 to 5% interest. But the compounding long term, coupled with other strategies, it's pretty hard. There's another guy actually in the community, Jeff Jesse, who he's in the Wolf Den. He and I have collaborated a ton lately. He's very good with spreadsheets, numbers. I'm a big picture vision guy, right? We actually did a kind of a hypothetical example of $25,000 on a 35-year-old single male, $25,000, no new money. So year one, split that half into the life insurance, half into Guardian, okay? Take profits off of that every single year, 50% off of Guard, no matter where it grows to. We just did an average number. Recycle that profit into the insurance, loan out half of what's in the insurance to use as new profit for Guardian. $25,000, and I want to say it was 13 years, 12 years, was right under $1 million. 25 grand one time, no new profit. Now, on Guard side, right? Like I can't legally say like, oh, well, that's 100% going to happen because we don't know what's going to happen with crypto assets, right? Could go up, could go down, could stay the same. But with insurance, it's bulletproof. If I do an application for a client and an illustration gets printed out based on their age, from age whatever today to age 121, those returns are what they're going to be. It's not hypothetical. It will be that on the guaranteed column, right? Because of that 2%. And then pretty much whole life. And that's why we don't use index universal life. For anybody listening to this, you're like, hey, I've kind of heard of this strategy before. And I heard somebody say you could do infinite banking with an IUL. Freaking run, because they are selling you based off of the higher rates of return. They're inflating that. I'm not against index universal life. I just don't think it should be used for banking purposes. It should be viewed as an index fund that doesn't have taxes. Okay, so that's my kind of short little blurb on infinite banking. Again, Be Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, great book. The Reserve, How Privatized Banking actually works. Usually another good read, a little bit thicker. There's a ton of other books out there too, but ultimately it just comes down to, sometimes I tell people it's not a one size fits all approach. Okay. It has to be right for you, and you have to be set up to a way where you're like, okay, I have some extra capital every month that I don't know where to put it, or I've got crypto profits. Listen, there are certain guys in the crypto community, they don't want to put anything in the USD. They don't ever want it there. And if they do want to buy something, they take their amount out, they buy it just enough to pay their bills, and they're good. And that's okay. That might not be for them, right? So yeah, that's kind of like the crash course, I would say, on IBC strategy, but there's so many more nuances to it. It's just very hard to kind of condense into one session. So
yeah. And I'm thinking, like, out of we still got 17 people here listening in, and then we'll have the replay later. I'm sure some people are gonna want to like talk to you one-on-one after the fact.
Sure.
We can talk about how to connect with you in a little bit, but I wanted to open it up, like, for everyone here watching. Like, do you have any questions? Maybe it's about your situation, maybe it's about how some of this stuff works. I know when I first heard what David had to say, I was like, oh, I have like 80 questions. Let me just pick like 2 or 3 to ask. So many questions swirling around in my mind. And at the time, like, I was asking the wrong question at the wrong time. But as I asked those questions, it kind of helped me solidify my own understanding of, okay, I get it now. This is the first step. Then later I do this, and then later I do this. So let me just open it up. You can drop it in the chat if you want to, or, I mean, we got a pretty tight knit group here. It's mostly people in the mastermind. So if you want to just throw yourself off mute and ask a question and turn your camera on, by all means.
Yeah. Hey, David. So you're recommending in general that someone use a mutual company and have a participating policy such as whole life,
right,
in supplement of a bank account, right?
correct.
So, I mean, what do you say about that strategy in light of policies generally taking a number of years to break even or even go positive?
Yeah. So that's a good question, because honestly, that kind of comes back to how they're structured. Those policies don't really get in the net positive until after year 4 or 5, mainly because the person that set it up maybe didn't explain the right way, right? But the right way is to not have a massive death benefit. So the base and the PUA are 2 different parts of the policy. Think of it as a teeter-totter. And really, to achieve this strategy the right way, this is kind of like, I'm gonna blast the kind of like the secret door off of the unknown thing. You don't make a ton of commission as an agent when you structure these policies the right way. Okay, you just don't. We get paid as a representative to the insurance company. We get paid and compensated based off of the death benefit and how much that is at the time of application. So the more PUA money you put in, that stands for paid up addition rider. Okay, it's the second part. The more PUA you put in, the more you eventually actually become insured for. Up front, you're not going to have a massive death benefit, but as the policy grows the PUA money, it will. Where agents run into issues, and where clients ultimately run into issues with their policy not growing fast enough, is that there's what I call a sweet spot. You can technically structure this stuff all the way down to 90% PUA. 10% of the premium dollar that goes in is your base death benefit. That's buying your insurance contract. Okay, think of that as like your cost of entry. What happens is that agents will set this stuff to like 50-50, or like even a 60% base, 40% PUA. Now, here's why that could work long-term for the client. If a client says, I don't want to touch the money for 5 or 6 years, I don't want to use it as a banking policy, I just want to let it grow. Cool, perfect. Because actually that bigger base death benefit is going to buy you a lot bigger of a wiggle room to stuff cash in over a 20 or 30-year time span. The downside, it's not liquid up front. It will be eventually. All of it will be liquid up front one day, but you have to get to that point. So when you say like cash flow positive, or like get to the big break even point, all that's saying is break even means I can touch 100% of the dollars that I put in. Okay. The best way to structure these things, and we've done case study after case study. I have an internal wholesaling team, they call it, at 2 different companies, Lafayette Life, Columbus Life, and I know a couple guys at Mass Mutual that are actuaries. 30%, 25 to 35 max is the sweet spot. Why? After about year 2, you're not only positive and you've broken even. See, the catch is year 1 and 2, you can still use the policy. You're just going to have about 60 to 65% liquidity. The rest of that money, the insurance company kind of holds back because, well, they got to do their thing, right? They got to protect themselves, protect their assets. So they can't make it all liquid up front, because then you have a big death benefit. You're using all the money as it's loaned out. They have nothing really to go off of. So with that said, it's always a long-term strategy, right? This is a place that we're storing cash. It's not, hey, I want this account to be, maximized in year 2. It's a long-term play. So to kind of circle back to what you asked, it's a great question, because I am very, very, very against agents that aren't honest about this stuff and they structure it the wrong way, because they tell you, yeah, you're going to have 80% liquidity year 1 and actually only have 30% and you're pissed. And to be frank, I don't know why they do it. I think it's greed, yes, but logically I'm like, if your client goes to use the policy and take a loan and they see that their values suck, they're going to be like, dude, what happened? Where's my money, right? Well, the money's there. It's locked up like a traditional investment. So I usually structure most clients around the 70-30 blend, 30% being base, because that actually gives them enough wiggle room to stuff as much cash in. See, the other negative side to structuring this stuff, if you do a 90-10 blend, that's about as much as you can do. It really limits the amount you can put in. Like, based off my income, let's say I could put in $100,000 a year, but if I do a 90-10 split, contractually it shrinks the contract, because that base death benefit is buying you, think of it like an allowance. That base death benefit, if it's tiny, well, sure, you're going to be more cash flow positive. But if I could contribute $100,000 with a different structure, and I do a 90-10 split to try and get as much liquidity as possible, I might only be able to shove in $20,000 a year. So there's kind of a balancing act that you have to find. You have to say, well, what do I want? It's a lot like okay, clarity, directional clarity. What do I want? Why do I want it? And what do I need to use this policy for? Okay. I structure policies for people all the time that they're like, you know what? My goal is maximum growth. I don't want to touch it. Okay. We might do something like a 60-40 blend then. That's different. Okay. Then I'll start layering in other things like a 60-40 blend with 20% of their portfolio has index universal life. And then maybe we'll throw in some really cool private equity deals on the back end at a cattle farm, 20% rate of return, and now crypto, right? So building generational wealth is not one tier, it's layering assets. So very good question, Matt. Did that kind of answer that for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Thank you.
Awesome.
And then Eric put in the chat here, do you fully fund the policy or pay monthly premium? Doesn't matter.
Ultimately, it doesn't matter to the insurance company, because as long as you want the policy open, they're going to get their money. But you are going to get credited full interest for the whole year, right? Interest for the whole year, and then dividends monthly. All of that up front. If you do, let's say, hey, my policy premium is $50,000 for the year. I want to put all $50,000 into there, start working right away. You can fund it annually, or you can just divvy it up monthly, and that's okay too. So, yeah, all good questions. And Brandon, I do want to say I'm glad you're doing this, man, because listen, it's hard enough being like targeted as, oh, you do insurance? I'm like, well, no, I do a lot of stuff. I guess you would say like, I'm in the money industry. Insurance is one tool, but you always get singled out like, oh, you're that life insurance guy. Okay, sure, whatever. But there's so much misinformation out there, especially I'm already battling Dave Ramsey on the daily, right? It's like, if people could just break that mindset, like, I'm not going to bash him. Use them for the debt strategies if you really need that. But once you're out of debt, forget everything he told you about debt. So then go get good debt, right? Go get some real estate. So I'll bash Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, Ophir's volunteering for you.
That's funny. Yeah, it's good for what he is. I have to give credit that he knows how to build a following and he knows how to market, and he has helped people get out of debt, and that's great. So I just say when he talks about whole life insurance, I would love to get on his show because I'll talk circles around him. It's just the truth. So.
Yeah, and it's reflective of people having a one-dimensional understanding of what the product is and how it potentially plays well with other products like inside of an ecosystem. And that's a
So-
big part of what we talk about in crypto as well, is like, don't just go and buy a random one-dimensional asset where you just buy it and then sell it later. Like, figure out how these things interplay with each other, and
Right.
then it becomes a longer term strategy where you're going to win.
So what
Yeah,
are some of the
that's-
questions that we ask an agent when we're out trying to find one who's qualified to write one of these? What are
Mhm.
some of the questions to ask to see if they even can take care of this issue?
Yeah, good question. So, and I'm a little bit different. It's not like little kind of teeter totter question, like walk around the side skirt the question. It's how long have you been doing this? How much premium have you written? Where did you learn or mentor from, right? Did you learn underneath someone that's a Nelson Nash? There's actually a whole group of people, right? I mentored directly under Nelson Nash right before he passed away. Nelson Nash Institute has a group of advisors that kind of are vetted advisors. With that said, I mean, it's time, it's experience, it's results. And ultimately, if you want to ask them like tactical questions, right, you could say, are the companies you recommend, are they all mutually owned? What kind of recognition on the loan provisions are there? Is it direct or non-direct? Again, you want non-direct, right? You don't want the policy to recognize that the loan is out. Okay, so direct recognition, bad. Aside from that, it's really, I would ask them, hey, like, do you feel confident? Do you have the track record that you can confidently show me an illustration and walk me through the guarantees and the policy and things like that? A lot of agents will sell based off of, again, just watching videos or they sound good. But if they don't know how to implement it into your specific, like, personal economy, I always say that term, personal economy, you're going to look different than Dennis. Dennis is going to look different than Casey. Casey's going to look different than Blaine, right? Like, everybody has their own set of circumstances, debts, the long-term strategy that you're trying to achieve. Is it cash flow? Is it liquidity? I mean, there are so many things that go into this. So yeah, it's also not just the product or the agent. It's the agent having the understanding that, hey, this is an actual financial tool, not a product to just stick on somebody and, oh, I guess I'll just let it work. Like a mutual fund, right? There's nothing to a mutual fund. You just fund it and then hope it does well. So
what DK is trying to say is talk to him and not other people who don't know shit.
And what's awesome is that I have started growing a very awesome team on the back end. I have about 11 advisors now who, honestly,
Wow.
they're all, I would say they're mentoring under me and other people that I have trusted in the industry as well. We're all collaborating because we have so much going on right now that I'm trying to create a university online that is all about old school, like, money tactics that will ultimately, I'm going to talk to Brandon probably offline about teaming up with also teaching crypto, because this is my core belief. If people have a business or an income that's solid, okay, and they get out of debt, and then they can get into understanding just the basics of insurance, real estate, private equity, and cryptocurrency. That's all you need to become very wealthy. Insurance, real estate, maybe private equity, maybe not, and in crypto. Arguably, you could probably just do it income, insurance, crypto, and then just maximize that as much as you can. Create more income, stuff it into your policy, leverage it into crypto, get as much profit as possible safely and smart, go back into your insurance. If your business is growing, keep growing your business for more profit to go into more investing, and you just keep doing that. Some people want to go get real estate, want doors. My brother and I were passionate about that. We're set our family up, our parents up with some real estate because it's tangible. They can put their hands on it. They like it. They don't understand crypto. They don't want to. So I'm not going to teach that, right? It all comes down to the person. But yes, that's ultimately, I love teaching on this stuff, and I have no problem at all. Eric, if you were to be like, hey, can we connect offline? I got this guy locally that I'm working with. I'm not sure about him though. I have no scarcity mindset. I just want to make sure people get set up the right way. I don't care if I make any money off them. So, but I appreciate that though, Daniel. I will say in confidence, I am one of the best in the industry at doing this. So.
License
Okay,
and
now he said it. Okay.
And then Heidi, did you have a question? Because it looks like you took yourself off mute, and then we'll make you the last one, and then we'll kind of wrap up. I hate to cut it short, but I've got a meeting immediately after this one that I.
Yeah, I actually got to run too, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Cool. Yeah,
as
Daniel,
always.
if you got to bounce, yeah, no worries.
I'll catch you
Thanks
guys
for joining
real quick,
us.
bud.
See you, Daniel. We're John, bud.
my question is, I maximize index universal life policies actually for my husband and I for the tax-free retirement. So we talked very briefly about taking crypto and put it into a life insurance policy and not paying taxes. But I don't understand how I take my crypto earnings once we get to that $1 million mark and put it into my index universal life policy if it's not maxed out yet, before it goes into a MEC. So how do you not pay taxes on that? I don't understand how you take it from crypto to IUL or whole life, whatever you have, back to crypto. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, that's a totally different conversation. So that's the next step of kind of what you would have to step into is one of a couple things. Now, if you own a business or you're actively wanting to acquire real estate and you want to show income, it's tough, right? I get into conversations with like sovereignty and taxation. You can actually file a series of paperwork. It's called the revocation of election, and you no longer pay taxes on any type of capital gains personally. But you can also do other things in your, and that's kind of I would say that's more of an outside the box solution. Not a lot of people like to do that because it changes your actual citizenship, which I won't get into that. Regardless, it's available. Corporate structures, you can set up a corporate account to where ultimately when you move crypto profits into an insurance account, yes, you're going to incur some sort of taxation event.
Okay.
Unless you set up some sort of an irrevocable trust structure, which I have people that do. That irrevocable trust then owns the crypto asset, okay? And then your personal income or accounts in an LLC are owned in the trust as well. So at that point, you're relabeling everything that you own because our
Okay.
tax system is based off of ownership.
Yeah.
You don't ultimately want to own this stuff. You want your trust to own it, okay? So that's a little bit higher level of a conversation. But yeah, for average people that are like, I don't want to mess with all that, you're going to pay some tax anytime you move stuff in and out. But there are ways around that. It's just how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go with how to restructure and retitle your personal economy.
So my husband has dual citizenship with Japan and the US. So is that a conversation where we could put it to the crypto, to the IUL, to the crypto?
Yes, you may have to retitle the insurance under a trust entity, and that would just depend on the company that it's with. Now, who's it with? National Life or?
I think we each have one with North American and one with Transamerica.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that can all be discussed in details. Feel free to get a hold of me. That's a much deeper rabbit hole than the rest of the time we have. For sure.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue. David, if you want to maybe just like give us some quick info on how do we connect with you, if that's Facebook profile, if that's an email or whatever.
Yeah, you can either hit me up on the Facebook profile, you can message me, or if you want to send an email directly to my administrator, you could do info@our, that's OUR, legacycompany.com. So ourlegacycompany.com. Or you can just feel free to literally just message me on Facebook. It's DK Hutch, and there is the. Okay, so, yep. Right there, if you got it, or info@ourlegacycompany.com. Yeah, awesome questions in it for sure. That's all. There's always a solvable problem. It's just how many hoops do you have to jump through and sets of paperwork do you have to figure out?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, David, again, thank you so much for sharing the time with us and just giving us some insight. I'm sure that there's going to be a few people that want to connect with you afterwards. So yeah, all I'm going to say here at the end, friends, is like, take advantage of this opportunity. He knows his stuff. And once obviously you can see that here, but once you have a more direct conversation with him one-on-one, you'll see the real depth of his knowledge. And, there's probably a potential to work together, if not setting up something short-term, but setting up something potentially long-term as well. And again, just like full disclosure, I've chosen to work with David. I don't get any like referral commissions or any kickbacks or anything by hosting this. I worked with him. I love the experience, and I wanted to share that relationship with the rest of you, so you can make that connection as well.
You'll get a Christmas basket, my friend. So.
Yeah. Okay, great. Christmas basket is. All right. Thanks, everyone. And for those of you in the mastermind, I posted in the announcements channel, our next mastermind session is Tuesday, And Jen, I did get your message, and we'll work on having a few sessions that are Pacific time morning to accommodate your time zone, so you can join us live for a few as well. Otherwise, everyone, have a great day, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you.